Today let's talk about the Big Agnes Copper Spur HV UL2 Backpacking Tent. Welcome back everybody to the Bicycle Bat Cave. Today we're talking about a tent specifically designed for bikepackers in mind. Big Agnes came along and built this bikepacking specific tent with shortened 12-inch or 30-centimeter poles in a design that really is useful for those of us who are bikepackers. I've been using a Eureka Midori 2 for quite some time. If you're familiar with that tent, it's a traditional two-person affordable tent that you can pack up and take along, but it certainly pays the price in weight and size by comparison to something like this. I went ahead and pulled the trigger on this even though it's fairly expensive. And the reason was I really liked the idea that this tent would fit inside of my Arkel dry lights very easily with the shortened poles and the shortened packaging. Comes with this really nice compression sack with a cap on top that is water resistant but not waterproof. So you want to keep that in mind if that's something you're concerned with. They're going to ship along these Velcro strips or straps that you can use on this tent as well. It does has daisy chain places here so that you can hang this off your handlebars directly, but you do need to keep in mind this is not going to be 100% waterproof. I also went ahead and bought the footprint, and I've never purchased a tent footprint before, but I thought in this instance I wanted to try to have a footprint that would perhaps match up perfectly with the tent. Along with that comes a few nice options that you can set up the tent fly and the footprint without actually putting the tent itself in there. So if you want to have the tent set up more of an open air style with just a fly and you're going to sleep more in the open a little bit, you can certainly do that with this footprint. It's also very lightweight and fits perfectly. You could get by without buying this. You could certainly use a piece of tarp, or Tyvek is a very popular lightweight option to be able to use as an underlay for your tents. But with this thin sil nylon style material, I was more concerned about punctures, tears, rips, and those things, so I thought I'll go ahead and buy the footprint. Cost on this, not cheap. Let's face it, it's Big Agnes. They're going to charge you. This is a two-person tent. The price is going to be high. You're paying for the portability and the construction and all of those things. The tent itself, I paid $469.95 on Amazon. The footprint was $75. So as you can tell, you're almost up to $550 when you get this combination. So you're paying a premium for it. But I tell you, when it comes to the ability to pack this up, the lightweight, the way it fits together, the construction quality, you can tell that they've put some time and effort into this. And so I do think it's worth it. So let's talk about the weight of this a little bit. I brought the scale out here because everybody wants to know the weight of things. So we've got the footprint, which is 279 grams or 9.8 ounces. And we've got the tent and the poles and the stakes are in there as well. We're at 1,591 grams or 3 pounds, 8 ounces. About half the weight of the Eureka Midori that I was using before. So something to keep in mind. So while we're setting this up, we will talk about the dimensions. Width on this is about 52 inches. And if you're familiar with this, this is a trapezoid design, so it's wider at one end, narrower at the other. So you're looking at 52 inches wide at the wide end, 42 inches at the narrow end, and a total of 88 inches overall length. Height is 40 inches tall, which is plenty of room to set up, be able to get up in the tent and stand up, or not stand up, but set up without having to worry about having room overhead. There is storage in the tent, so you've got an area in the front of the tent for placing things. There are pockets at each back end that you can drop a phone, keys, wallet, all those things. Kind of standard stuff. Things that are different though is that they have added a place to store your helmet, which is over on the side, outside of the tent, but underneath the fly. They also have on the outside of the fly some daisy chains so that you can put clothing and things like that, anything you want to on the outside of the tent to let it dry or so forth. Overall, who do I think this tent's for? Well, I think it's for anyone who wants a great high quality two-person tent. Now they do make this in a one-person version as well, but I've always been a fan of the two-person for having space and plenty of room to put my gear if I need to and so forth. I think it's designed for those who are really concerned about the pole length and width. If you're not concerned about that, this is not a tent you have to have. You can certainly use the standard version of the Copper Spur, but this is really nice, compact package. One of the questions that people always have is, will this go back in the bag? And the answer to that is, certainly will. It took a little time, a little practice to figure out how to fold and roll because you're dealing with a lot shorter space. But this material really makes that happen. If you're familiar with sil nylon tents and the stuff they're doing now, they're treating them with a material that's like, it's like a silicone style treatment to them. So you can feel it has almost a rubbery kind of a texture to it a little bit, but it's super thin, super lightweight. It definitely compresses and rolls up easily. I didn't have problems like a lot of tents I have where, you know, it gets a big bubble of air and you're having trouble getting the air out of it. This really, it was really easy to put away actually. It rolled up easier than I thought it would, and going back in the packaging was really easy. The compression sack helps a lot because you can loosen this thing off, have a little bit of room, shove things in there, and then once it's rolled up and just kind of get it in there and then cinch it down and really tighten it all up and makes it a very compact package. Same thing goes for the footprint. When it came, it was very flat, a little bit flatter than this, but I wondered, would I be able to fold this up, roll this up, and get it back in there? But it worked out fine. Again, same style material, sil nylon, worked fine, was able to fold it up, roll it up, get it back in there. Lightweight, has the same treatment to it, so as you handle this stuff initially, you'll feel kind of the texture and the whatever they spray it with. It's just, it's hard to explain, but kind of a silicone feel, I guess, is what I'm saying. If you're in the market for a new tent, I think this is something you certainly could give some consideration. It is expensive, but what you're paying for is portability and the size that allows it to be easily carried and packed on the bike. Big Agnes quality certainly is there. You've got really well-constructed seams, zippers, mesh material, everything's top-notch. And you can just tell it in the construction when you're putting this tent up. When you're putting it down, everything goes back together easily, and there's something to be said for the convenience factor of smaller and lighter, easier to use. As time goes on, I'll put this through the paces and I'll let you know how wear and tear and how it lasts long term, but so far I'm excited to be able to give it a try. I think that it's going to be a really good tent. If there's any concerns I have, I always wonder about tent poles and the cordage that's between them, the elastic cordage. I've never had that break on any of the other tents, like the Eureka even. But there are a lot more moving parts here, a lot shorter segments and so forth. So over time, I'm interested to try that. It does come with the stakes. I think it's 8 total stakes. They're the aluminum V-shaped stakes. Maybe they could be upgraded, but they seem to be adequate for what we're doing on the most part. It is a freestanding tent, so you don't have to stake it if you don't want to, and I think that's really its major advantage over the Fly Creek version. It's one of the reasons that I chose it over the Fly Creek, was I didn't want to have to worry about having to stake it if I was in a place where that didn't work out. If you're familiar with some of the places I've been, some of the places that I've gone, it's a challenge to find a place to stake sometimes if it's rocky or depending on where you're at. So, Big Agnes, Copper Spur, UL2, HV for high volume, by the way. Great tent, made specifically for bike packing. If you're interested, links are in the description. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.